8 hours until the massacre at Ffirth Asylum. John found himself packed into the most depressing room he'd ever been in, and an undisclosed that was really saying something. It was a gymnasium in the depressing old Ffirth TB Asylum, a building that had been old, abandoned, and almost certainly haunted since his father was a kid. Inside, the place was even more of a rotting and mildewing shithole than out. The lawn boards in the old gym floor had warped and curled up over time, creating a rippling floor that, if painted blue, would look like the surface of the ocean on a windy day. He didn't see Amy there, but he wouldn't have even if she were. There were partitions with curtains set up to divide the gym into dozens of little rooms containing cots. Teams of guys in those spooky Darth Vader spacesuits were rolling a cart from one room to the next, taking blood samples from everybody. John wondered what exactly they were checking for. He wondered what his blood alcohol level was. John's hands were still bound behind him. Everybody else was getting a standard checklist read off of a clipboard. Are you having hallucinations? Any unexplained urges or mood swings? Are you experiencing any unusual sores or lesions in the mouth area? But they came back to his cot twice after his interview, asking him his name, asking how he knew Dave and Amy, and so on. Finally, they asked him if he knew Amy's whereabouts, and John felt like a Gatorade bucket of relief get dumped over his head. They don't have her. On the fourth visit, they brought a white spacesuit that contained a smiling, gray-haired guy who John instantly disliked. "Hello there, John. I'm Dr. Bob Tennant. How are we today?" "I know you somehow. I don't believe we've had the pleasure of meeting, but I know your friend David." Right. You're his crossbow therapist." Tennant grabbed a rolling office chair and dragged it over. He sat on it backwards, straddling it so that he could cross his arms over the back in a casual, folksy way, which looked absurd in his huge, bulky, hazardous materials suit. He pulled out a device with a series of clips dangling at the end of thin wires. "Your left hand, please." Tennant clipped the 5 clips to John's fingers. At the other end of the wires was a box with a small screen. Tennant punched in some settings. Was this thing going to give him a manicure? "Now please, answer the following questions honestly. They might seem odd to you, but reading your reaction will give us vital insight into your condition." John said, "Whatever. Wait, you said no, David. Present tense. Is Dave still around?" "We'll explore that in a moment. As you can imagine, John, we're working just as hard as we can to give a clean bill of health to the people who don't need our help, so we can devote as much time and attention as we can to the ones who do. And by help, you mean throwing them behind that goddamned prison camp you've built next door. You feel what we're doing here is unethical. Is that some kind of joke? You can't tell me the government knows what's really happening here. We have rights and shit." "Why do you say that?" "Why do I say there's a such thing as human rights? Wait, what is all this? Who are you?" You understand the irony of you asking that question. When my entire role here is figuring out who or what you are. You and the rest of the patients in this facility. We have rights either way. Human rights. Yes. But you may no longer be human. Jesus Christ, look at me. You know damned well there's nothing wrong with me. I'm sitting here having a rational conversation with you, in English. There is a species of carnivorous turtle whose tongue has evolved to look exactly like the worms local fish are known to eat. The fish swim right into its mouth, going after the worm, only to have their heads severed by powerful jaws. If, say, a hypothetical predator of humans had learned to mimic human speech and mannerisms in order to make it a more efficient predator, that would hardly make it human, or guarantee it rights under our Constitution or any common system of morality. Holy shit. The whole world has gone insane out there, hasn't it? So you just throw everybody in concentration camp and figure you'll sort it out later? That's where things are at? Ah, your friend called the quarantine a prison, but you have elevated it to a concentration camp. Your generation does have a flair for the hyperbolic when it comes to describing your own adversity. Wait, so you did talk to David. So he's alive. Tennant looked up from his readout and said, "Let's explore that." That'll be a good jumping off point for us. If David were here, but was infected, would he still be David? What? Say his personality remained exactly the same, but the parasite caused his head to transform so that his face was replaced with the face of a leech, complete with circles of tiny teeth for sucking human blood. Would you still consider him to be your old friend? Are you saying he's infected, or are you just fucking with me? Instead of answering, Tennant studied the screen on the device hooked to John's fingers and made some notes on the clipboard. Good. Now, let's say the opposite happened. Say he still looked, spoke, and acted like David, but was in reality an inhuman predator. How would that make you feel? Please answer. Are you serious? Please, we have a lot of patients to get to. It would make me feel bad. Tennant nodded and checked something off of his clipboard. Now, let's say that he was not infected but was sent to quarantine with hundreds of people who are, and that their infection has dissolved the part of their brain capable of making moral decisions. And let's say that they overpowered David, restrained him, defecated into his mouth, and taped his mouth shut with duct tape, and left him there to writhe and slowly swallow feces all week. How would that make you feel? Who are you? A check of the screen. A mark on the clipboard. Almost done. Now, if you had to choose either to have Amy Sullivan gang raped by 27 infected males in town over the course of 10 days, or to have Dave's digestive tract surgically restructured so that his large intestine fed directly into his mouth, which would it be? And please provide support for your answer. You're fucking crazy. Tennant glanced at his clipboard and said, if you had to choose, and if you were not allowed to see either ahead of time and had no other information to go on, would you rather fight Mind Crow or Ganadulus? This isn't a government operation, is it? If it wasn't, tell me how that would make you feel. You're behind all this. All of this. You people released that thing in Dave's house. You set all this in motion. What's your real name? Tennant casually glanced at another page on his clipboard and said, all right, John, I think we're in good shape here. What we're going to do is observe you overnight. Standard procedure. Don't read anything into it. And tomorrow morning we'll do this all again, so we can cross-check the results. Between now and then, I want you to really mull this over. If you were carrying the parasite right now, how would you know? John didn't answer. Tennant stood, pulled the clips from John's fingers, and as a goodbye said, you are now aware that your lower jaw has weight, and that it requires effort for you to hold it up. Good evening.